What are we doing in the black community? The number one consumer of a Mercedes-Benz is us. Us. The number one consumer of a Gucci and a Louis Vuitton, us. And they don't even advertise. Why is it that in the black community, we are always the number one consumer, but we're not the number one creators?
So you just said it, the fact that there's consumers and creators. For so long, we assume success based on consumption.
Yeah, what they always say, people who, whatever your specialty is, you spend more time helping other people than you do helping yourself and whatever your area of expertise is. And that is, I've definitely found that true. So I sit there and talk money all day, every day to everybody else, but I'm like, man, nobody talk money to me. Ain't nobody asking me, man, are you okay? Can you do anything better? So it's why I've elicited the help of some different people. I got my partner in Atlanta, my boy OG, who happened to be a Q, one more guy, but he kind of operates as, independent CEO for me. So I hit him up and we always kind of bounce the ideas. He'll give me that truthful advice. He'll tell me what I need to hear versus what I want to hear, which is why, me and him have the relationship that we have. It's crazy. I met him through a failed business relationship. And the guy who was my partner at the time, we didn't share the same work ethic and passion for what we do. And I met this gentleman through him, which is actually his LB. We met and I was putting together a seminar for me and my partner at the time. And I had never met him before. And he came down and the first thing he asked me, he said, man, do you need any help with anything? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got a partner that's in business with me that never once asked me if I needed any help. And here this brother is, never met him, don't know him from a can of paint. He just said, man, I see what you're doing. Do you need help with anything? Man, you got everything. You need this, you need that. I'm like, man, I wasn't used to help. And, we hit it off immediately, developed a relationship, a friendship, and have been working together ever since. He was, one of the groomsmen in my wedding. So, but he's one of those people that, he'll tell me what I need to hear versus what I wanted. And that's rare, especially when you're in a position when people feel like, you're the one lending the help usually, or you have certain resources. People tend to kind of lean on you and use you to a certain extent and not want to ruffle that relationship. Whereas, I've always appreciated him because he would tell me the truth. He would, even if it was uncomfortable and we get into it and, but I can always appreciate it, take a step back. Like, man, so I value, that relationship, greatly. And those are one of the things we actually talked about in the last episode and, how I value people and, if I can see God in you and, that's what attracts me to individuals, not necessarily how much money a person has or, what their social status is. For me, it's about your character and integrity. And, I'm always, always for looking to have people around me that, have that same thing. So, welcome back to Closing the Gap, the truth about Black wealth. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton, here with my co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson. Kicking off 2025, looking forward to another amazing year. We're thankful and happy to have you. Platform is growing. And it's all because of you, the listeners. Of course, on here V949 WATV. Of course, you can check us out on YouTube and all your social media platforms, as well as different podcast stations. Also, you can find us, check me out every first Monday of the month on Monday Mondays with Chris Coleman. We're going to continue to bring you a lot of wonderful information. Of course, our passion is speaking to you and helping you. We want to help people. We believe in, we're all blessed to be a blessing. We all believe that, all of us have a gift and a passion. We just kind of find out what it is. And, the best way to find it out is have a conversation with the Lord. Yeah. So we believe in having that conversation first and foremost. And, Brother Richardson, how do you feel about 2025 and where we're going?
Oh, man, I am cautiously optimistic. And, and that really defines my everyday life, to be honest. Cautiously optimistic. I am one that definitely expects to see victory in various areas because I'm always trusting in God in everything that I do and every day that I move. But cautiously optimistic because a lot of times I don't know what to expect, right? And they're staying up. We move into 2025. I have a few plans. I've written down a few things. I got some more things to write down and lay out, but I don't know what exactly to expect in 2025. I have a plan. And I pray that my plan is aligned with God's plan. But only time will tell.
And like they say, you know, you want to make God laugh, tell him what you got planned for the new year. So, you know, we all hope to see what we want to see, but, you know, we all blessed to see whatever it is he have us for, you know, to see. Because all things work together for good for those that love the Lord and called according to his purpose. So, you know, the biggest thing is making sure you're called according to his purpose and not yours. And, you know, I think we all struggle with that from time to time. We all have, you know, wants and dreams and desires, and we want certain things for our life. And, you know, it doesn't always play out that way, which is good, because if you stay connected to him, you know, long enough, and he'll continue to speak to you, and he'll reveal certain things to you when they need to be revealed to you. You know, I always believe, and I've learned firsthand, if you ask God a question, he gonna give the answer. Now, your understanding of the answer is what's gonna change over time based on your perspective. So usually when, you know, I had to learn that saying of, you know, it ain't denied, it's just delayed. You know, sometimes he ain't ready to give you what he wants you to have because you ain't got the right people around you to help you utilize whatever the blessing is going to be. So, you know, for me here, you know, of course, we're closing the gap. This is a vision and a passion, you know, and it comes from really what I do on a day-to-day basis. You know, I've been, you know, blessed and called to be a financial advisor. Of course, you know, this is my ministry. This is my passion. This is my lot in life. You know, I truly want to touch people I've never come into contact with. And, you know, as I, you know, worked in my everyday life and work with people and, you know, talking to them about their finances and, of course, my community, you know, first and foremost, and just seeing the struggles, the lack of education, the lack of financial literacy, and lack of opportunities. And it wasn't a lack of opportunities because we didn't have, it was purely out of ignorance. And
lack of knowledge.
Yeah, people perish with lack of knowledge. And we definitely, you know, me, you know, as I learned and grew in my profession, of course, you know, just that burning desire inside of me grew and grew. And, you know, I'd always been told that, you know, I had a voice, and I've always had a lot to say when it comes to my area of expertise. And, you know, just, you know, one day I woke up and said, man, I need to get into contact with more people. I got to increase this megaphone and really do what God has called me to do. You know, because the one thing I don't want to do is leave this earth not having done everything that God placed in front of me to do. You know, I want to one day, you know, see the Lord and he say, well done. You know, that's kind of, you know, that's my thing. That's, you know, I wanted him to say, well done. So that DJ Hater song, it hits, you know, when that came out, it hit me differently because I truly have a calling and a passion. And I truly want to hear the Lord say, well done, you know, my faithful servant. So that's the goal. And that's what led to Closing the Gap. You know, for me, I woke up one morning in 2008, when I was already a financial advisor at the time. And of course, that was right in the middle of, you know, one of the greatest stock market crashes in history. And the Lord had placed in my heart, he said, man, I just want to teach people how to create generational wealth. And you know, I had been doing some speaking in a lot of churches and a lot of different organizations and trying to educate my community. And I became to get extremely frustrated. And, you know, and I had a good spiritual father by the name of Bishop Carter. He would always tell me, he said, Will, he said, look, he said, I get up and I preach every Sunday morning. And I mentor and pastor the people all throughout the week. And he said, when I preach, I see at least 10 to 12 people I've had communication with throughout the course of the week that we specifically said things that they need to do as far as giving their life to Christ or coming to the altar, asking for prayer, you know, and seeking the Lord. Yeah. And I would preach what the message that God gave me, and I would watch the people sit on their hands. And he said, Will, you got to grow to a point to where you can look past what people do and just make sure you're doing what God told you to do. So I grew to a point where the vision became, you got to put the content out. You got to put the message out. It ain't your responsibility to make people accept the message. He said, look, I'll handle that. I'll make them receive it when I'm ready for them to receive it. But if you ain't putting it out, then they can't receive it. So, you know, I've just kind of grew to a point where I say, you know what? I'm going to do what God called me to do. And, you know, one thing we do know is that a man's skillful in his works is going to be placed before great men. So I've been blessed to kind of continue to be able to put out information. And I've been blessed to come into contact with more great men like yourself. So, you know, which brings us here, you know, in our relationship, we've known each other over 20 years now. So who knows, when I was looking for a new barber in when I was here playing football at UAB, and I needed somebody to get that ball fade right, to keep the waves popping, and they said, man, Ed is a guy you need to see, and from that point on, like I say, we've kind of grown and developed, and of course, I've watched you walk, and of course, I appreciate who you are as a man first, and then just watching you walk in everyday life, that brought me closer. And you actually have a lot of similarities, and you actually carry yourself similarly to Bishop Carter. Like, you have a lot of the same qualities, which is probably why, it attracted to you in certain ways. From a spiritual standpoint, I see that same humble, spirit, but, with a voice and a passion for the Lord and for helping our community. And I've watched you do things, educationally. I watched you speak to brothers in the barbershop, and, it only made sense that we, try to put our minds together and, feed the people, so to speak. And I'm thankful that you're here helping me try to feed the people.
Well, look, I appreciate you. Appreciate the kind words, and definitely, who knew?
Yeah.
At that time, that this would come about from so many years ago. Meeting in the barbershop, and I was telling my wife a while ago about myself. I said, hey, with the relationships that I have, like with you and others from the barbershop, it would seem as though I'm older than what I am, right? But I was fresh out of college myself when you all were just coming in. But just having some senior leadership, being there, being in the barbershop, and God providing me some wisdom to build these relationships. And so I'm grateful to God for you coming in the barbershop, getting your haircut at that time, and then even after you left and you came back, and then we just still reconnected, and then to reconnect to this point that we're able to sit down together and be able to disseminate great information to the public. And so I thank God for you. Thank God for what he's done in your life and brought us together for such a time as this. And when we talk about such a time as this, going into a new year, I think it's important for us to reflect on what got us here, like you.
Absolutely.
And I didn't know at that time, being in the barbershop, how the relationships that I was able to garner through cutting hair would survive the test of time like they have. Seeing young men come into a barbershop, not knowing what direction they're going to go, right? And then myself, not knowing either what direction I was going to fully go.
Right.
I'm cutting hair, I'm working in my field, but not really knowing how much God is working me in that field.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm grateful for that, and me staying there like I have over the years, and allowing God to move within my life. And that's what I've come to realize, is that wherever God puts me, he allows me to have a voice to be able to reach out to the people and build a relationship. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that from a sense of pride, but that's just what I realized over time, right? This is not something that I knew at that time. This is, and still, even now, I am amazed at how God works in that way. Because as different people come in and they ask questions, and we have conversations, and then in the conversation, God just ends up speaking through me to speak a word to somebody that's in my presence at that time. And I don't know what I'm saying to them has such significance for their life at that time until they come back later and tell me, say, man, when we had that conversation, what you said to me resonated, and it helped me make the right move that I needed to make.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I remember exactly what I said.
Yep.
Many times I don't. And that's what keeps me home, is because I don't know what I'm saying at that very time. I don't know the significance of what's going to be said, but God moves in the moment. And that's why I'm grateful to be here on this podcast. And that's why I'm willing to sit. That's why I'm willing to talk and allow the Spirit of God to move within me, because there's a listener that is listening, and we don't see them when they're listening on the radio. We don't see them when they tune in on the various podcast outlets. We don't see them when they go to YouTube and listen. But there's somebody that's going to listen to what we share, and they're going to be impacted. And that gives me my why. That lets me know why I continue to move and do what I'm able to do, because number one, God has ordained me to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Number two, God has ordained me to do it. And number three, God has people out here that need information and they need assistance, and there are many wolves out here.
Absolutely.
That are trying to take from people. Right. There are few that really care about God's people. There are few that really care about somebody's well-being without it benefiting them.
Absolutely.
You know, and so like yourself, you have your own, you're not worried about whether somebody listens and comes to do business with you. We would like that, but if they don't, that's fine. God has still called me to give the information.
Absolutely.
And so as we move through this 2025 year, we plan on giving you all more information. We plan on being more informative with what we give you and giving you actionable steps that you can take for the good of your life through faith and finance, right? I am, both of us dealing, I'm the preacher and you're the financial advisor, right? But you have a strong faith. And then I also have a business background of my own. Growing up, my family always had some type of business venture going. Right? My grandmother, my dad, my uncles, it was always selling something or doing something, right? We had a store back in my hometown of Linden, Alabama, and my uncle still had that property now. We had a pool hall in there. I mean, my dad used to take us up to the flea market, and sell things at the flea market. He was always buying and selling things, right? So the business acumen and understanding how to relate to people and talk to people and sell things and striving to manage money in the right way, that's something that I grew up in.
It's crazy because, ironically, I don't have a business background. My dad being a teacher and a coach, I come from more of a service background. My mom was an accountant, so she had some of the business, I would say skill set, but it was from an accounting and, CPA practice on a tax standpoint. My dad being more of a leader of men, him being a basketball coach, but him, leading with passion and care. And that's where, my service heart comes from. I truly believe that, we're all blessed to be a blessing, but I really saw him, understand and teach me the words of people don't want to know how much you know till they find out how much you care. And, I've implemented that into my business practice from a financial advisor standpoint. Is why we're, I want to have these conversations, why we want to talk faith and finances, that's why we always tell you got to get your life right. You got to talk to the Lord first before you come talk to me as a financial advisor. You and the Lord need to have a conversation first and foremost, because I can't help you until you allow him to help you first. Because I tell people from a financial planning standpoint, the biggest issue most people have is their habits. It's not how much God has given you, because God has promised to give us all what we need. He may not give you everything you want all the time, but he's going to give you what you need. And we have to do a better job of appreciating and taking care of what he's giving us and showing him that we can handle what he's given us where we're at. And he's saying, look, I can't give you more until you pass the test of where you're at. And, those are things and lessons that I had to learn and say, because we always want more. We're always chasing more. And everybody always saying, I don't have this and I don't have that. Well, guess what you do have? You got breath in your body. You got time to get out on your knees and tell the Lord, hey, come into my life. Help me. Fill me with your spirit. Walk with me. Show me where you want me to go. Reveal, my gift. If you don't know what your gifting is, reveal my gift to me, Lord, and lead me where you want me to go. And that will open up doors that will pour out a blessing that you won't have room enough to receive. So, when I tell people first and foremost, when you walk into the office and we want to talk Monday, I want to know who you are. Your character and integrity is more important than how much money you have. Because I had a very wise man tell me, by the name of Bishop Carter, he said, Will, he's saying, as long as you keep your character right, you never have to worry about your business. But the moment you allow your character to become flawed and you put an idol of money before God, everything you do is going to come crumbling down. See you back in a minute. Yes, here we are back with Closing the Gap, the Truth About Black Wealth. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton, here with my co-host, Brother Eddie Richardson. And of course, we continue to dive into more wonderful information. Of course, we're blessed and highly favored to be here in front of you and continue to bring you more amazing content. And like I said, as we kick off 2025, and some people, it's a new beginning. I say it's more of a, we want to keep doing what we're doing, but just keep getting better. We don't want to necessarily a new normal, but we want to just get comfortable and make getting better normal. That makes sense. So we're gonna do it like that. So the only thing I always see,
kind of frame in the scripture, Romans 12:2, right? Don't be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yes, sir.
So we want to do some mind renewal. We want to just start off on a new track that way.
Absolutely.
Putting our mind on some things new.
Well, absolutely. And, like I said, we want to remember, like I say, to set a new path forward, but at the same time, remember, where we come from. And, like I said, we all start with the habits. Like I said, we were talking about it in the previous episode, previous chapter, and just kind of diving into, what things we've done well, what things haven't we done so well, what things we can improve on. So, of course, all of us have, closed the year on a high note, hopefully. And we want to continue to learn from, what we did good and what we did bad, and continue to, to push the narrative forward as far as continue to educate ourselves, because, one thing I firmly believe nowadays, there's no such thing as ignorance. Ignorance is not an excuse anymore. We got access to too much information. Of course, we have podcasts like ours. We're going to bring you a lot of content, education, give you access to resources. So now it's time to implement, and take that next step. Of course, continue to, push ourselves forward, push our communities forward. And being better than we were previously, we always talk about how a righteous man leaving heritage to his children. And, at some point in time, a man has to make a decision.
That's right.
What kind of man he going to be? And we all make the decision to try to be the best we could possibly be, to leave our kids in a better situation and leave the world in a better place than where we found it. So, with that being said, and we're talking about the habits, and, I'm a firm believer in how, Christ is the foundation of establishing, good habits, and whether it be in your finances, whether it be in your relationships, with the significant other, with your kids, Christ being Christ-centered, helps you to avoid a lot of mistakes and helps you to give you a spirit of discernment. And we really need that, of course, especially in our finances, and helping us making decisions that make sense and some that don't make sense, understanding our needs before our wants, making sure that we, have the right mentality. We understand what our goals and objectives are, and really setting those goals and objectives. And being connected to God helps you set, I think, realistic goals, allows you to develop a real plan, and it gives you the strength to be consistent in it, because consistently doing the right things over a long period of time is really what will generate success. We always say, Rome wasn't built in a day, but nobody in most situations is born a millionaire, from our communities. Now, we need to start to have some kids to be born into being millionaires, with proper planning, with, doing estate planning, doing retirement planning, doing financial planning, investment planning. These are all things that you need to have in your repertoire. And if you don't know what they are, it all starts with a conversation, which is why we have this particular platform to give you information into what those things are. But like we said earlier, people perish through the lack of knowledge, and, prior planning prevents poor performance. And we've had a lot of poor performances in our community from a financial standpoint. And, we don't want that to become the norm. We want to improve on that. We want that to get better. We want each one to teach one. And we're blessed to be before you give that information. And, what is, I say, a couple of things that you would say that can help us maybe, to be better with our habits. Because we always got some things we need to improve upon. But of course, staying focused on the Lord is always, top of mind, and He'll direct your path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And appreciate that layout, Will, because what we what we have to look at is everybody has habits that they do, whether they are things that you purposely do or you just do them by mistake.
Absolutely.
But they're habits. You go through the routine. You do the same things over and over and over. And so what we want to do here is that, hey, as we said earlier, we want you to be transformed by the renewing of your mind, realizing that, yeah, I may be doing some things, but I'm not too big to be put in check, that I can't reevaluate on what I'm doing, that I can't take a new look and let somebody take a look at what I'm doing to see if what I am doing is actually profitable for my life. And when I say profitable, I'm not just saying financially, what we're also saying is faith as well, because what you sow, what you will also reap. So how you handle your money, where you sow your money will bring you some type of reaping. Where you sow your faith foundation will also bring you some reaping. So we want you to check those things, like be willing that as you go into this new year to reevaluate where you are, to take a look at your portfolio if you have one, to take a look at your foundation with God if you have one. And if you don't have one, then that's why we are here as well, not only for you to take the evaluation, but also to establish those things, to say, hey, okay, where am I trying to go? Where do I need to go? And let me set myself on a right path. That's how you need to renew your mind. You need to set your mind on things above and not the things beneath. Also, in talking about habits, we need to take into consideration that whenever we get ready to do anything, we need to do it all to the glory of God.
Absolutely.
Don't make any move in your life without consultation with God, right? Too many times we make moves in our lives and we don't seek the right advice. We don't seek the right consultation. So you need to take the time and start a new habit going into the new year to say, hey, okay, before I move on any move, I'm going to ask God, is this what I need to do? I'm going to submit that plan to God. Make that a new habit going into the new year. And then when you do that, what you'll realize is that God is the one that helped me get to this point, and God is the one that is guiding me through this point. And that's why the word in Philippians 4:13 is so key when it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? That's what will keep you humble and realize that, yeah, I have some knowledge. Yeah, I've done some good things. But now that I've made a reevaluation, now that I've consulted God, God has allowed me to set myself on an even better path than what I was already on. And then once you get on that path, you end up creating some new habits. Because also what we have to reevaluate about our habits is that sometimes you can be doing something that looks effective, but it's not as efficient as it could be. Because sometimes, like in sports,
Absolutely.
you talk about, hey, people, the old adage of practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm. Perfect practice,
right? Because you could be practicing bad habits over and over and over. I used to be a golfer, and that's what happened with my golf game. I had created some habits that were working for me, or at least I felt like they were working for me, right? But it wasn't until I went and saw a good brother by the name of B. Mason and had him to evaluate my game, and he pointed out some things. Yeah, you're doing some things that do work, but let me give you these tweaks, and these things will help you be more efficient. Like he said, yeah, you're effective with what you're doing. It's working for you, but it's not efficient.
Activity is not always productivity.
And the activity is not always productivity. So now what we're saying is, hey, we want you to have better productivity with your activity.
Absolutely.
Right? More efficient with your effectiveness. And so as we move into the new year, we want to put on a new person in a sense. And the new person is not a change, not a different person, but it's really just renewing who you already are really are. It's just like waxing a car. When you go through the day and you drive and through the weeks and you wash your car, but eventually the weather wears on your vehicle. And so it's good to get a wax job, to get off all the old paint and shine yourself up. So that's all we're saying is that we're not condemning anybody for what they're doing or what you aren't doing. But what we want you to realize is that everybody can stand to have somebody to give a reevaluation on where you are, what you're doing, and help you create some better habits for where it is that you desire to go. And not only where you desire to go, but better yet, where you need to go based on where you are in your life.
Well, it's one of those things I say to myself, on a daily basis. I've come to learn that you got to die daily. We're all sinful in nature. So you almost have to die daily to your sinful desires and ask the Lord, to fill me with your spirit. Lead me where you would have me to go. Let your will be done in my life. And, I think if you approach things that way, you can look at every day as a new challenge, every day as a new beginning. That doesn't mean every day is different. That just means that now I have a purpose. I have an understanding of, what, I'm going to make some mistakes. It's okay if I make some mistakes, but make the mistakes trying to be in line with what God has called you to do as opposed to you doing what you want to do. So I think a lot of times, we don't want to seek God because we got our own plan, our own agenda. And I've been there before. I'm a transparent person, so I can say, there's been times in my life when I had plans for me, and I wanted certain things the way I wanted them, but that wasn't what God wanted me to have. We've all been tied to something or someone way too long, and God has told us you need to let that go, let him go, let her go, let that go, and we've all resisted to a certain extent. And until you release what God has told you to let go, God is saying, I can't give you the best of me when you hanging on to something that ain't even connected to me.
Wow.
So we have to learn to die daily. I was blessed to go through a book called Discipline of Grace. It was years ago. It's probably around 2008 when I was really making the transition in my career and when God was really starting to speak to me. Luckily, I grew up in the church, and I always believed to train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. And I was blessed to have parents and a mother that was raised in the church and raised me in the church, whether I liked it or not. And like a lot of kids, I feel like I was in church every day, Saturday, Sunday included, all throughout the week. And those things helped me because when I came to college, she would always tell me, hey, if you can stay out all night on Saturday night, you can get up and get God this time on Sunday morning. So I made sure to get up and still go spend that time at church on Saturday, regardless of how late the party was on Saturday night. I made sure that when the brothers shut the club down on Saturday night, I made sure that I got to church on Sunday morning to give God his time. And it's been a blessing to me because later on in life, when things were not going because I was living according to me and not according to God, I had enough of a relationship and connection to God that I could hear that voice in my head. I could hear him speaking to me saying, get it together, come to me. And I sought out a good brother that worked for the FCA, and we started meeting on a weekly basis. And I started to have my come to Jesus moment. I knew I was headed in the path where I was, still being somewhat successful from a career standpoint. I was making money. I was a young guy, had a house, had cars, had everything that you would think that you wanted from a worldly perspective. But I was still unfulfilled. I knew I wasn't headed where God wanted me to go, and I was going where I wanted to go. And I knew that at some point in time, it's going to come to a head, and you don't want to make that mistake that you can't come back from. And I could feel that. I could feel him pulling on me. I could feel him saying, hey, I got something for you, but you got to let go of where you're at and what you're doing in order for me to give you what I want you to have. And right around the 2008 time frame when I made a transition in my career and I feel like everything was crumbling around me, I was sitting in my house and God spoke to me and said, I'm here. And I feel like I was all alone. Sitting in that house, I had a beautiful home at the time. I was, mid-20s, beautiful house, gated neighborhood, the whole 9 yards, making money, 2 cars outside, living the life, so to speak. Yeah. Living like I'm in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And, but everything that I had chose to be around me, I feel like had left me and deserted me. And I'm sitting in the house and I'm saying, Lord, why me? Why am I by myself when I feel like I've given so much and I try to help and do this and that? And I'm just talking out loud to the Lord. He says, I feel like the Lord just slapped me across the face, said, fool, I'm sitting right here. But I had to strip you down of everything you thought you wanted and you thought you needed to get you to a place where now Ain't nobody but me and you. Now you can hear me. And from that point in time, I've never felt alone again.
Wow.
Because I knew God was with me now.
Yes.
And he had removed everything from around me. And now me and him were able to develop a deeper relationship. But that did not happen until I had to go ask for help first. I called out to a brother that I knew was walking right, brother by name, Brother Eric Armstead. Still works for FCA to this day. And I reached out to him because I knew his walk. I saw God in him. I was watching him walk as a young man according to the way God had called him, living the way that God had told us that we should live. And he was a living example of that. So I reached out to him and said, man, I want to get with you. And we started doing weekly Bible study. And I had to humble myself and go and ask for help. And we started meeting on a weekly basis, doing Bible study, going through scripture, doing prayer, all these different things. And in the course of that, in it's probably, I would say, a 6-month time frame, where I thought everybody had left me, God had replaced all those people in my life with new individuals that brought value to me. So I went from feeling like I was by myself to knowing that I would never be alone again. But even if there were no people around, I knew that God was with me. So that was able to help me grow in my career, because I couldn't get the passion that I have to teach my community how to create generational wealth until I got in line with God and he said, now you ready to receive what I want you to do. He couldn't give me the vision until I got to a place where I was ready to receive the vision, because the vision would have scared me. He said, look, I know what I want you to do, but you got to be ready to handle what I got for you. Because one thing I know about God is that he can't lie. And if you are connected to him and aligned with him, once he gives you that vision, that means that vision must come to pass. Now, he don't tell you when that vision gonna come to pass. He ain't gonna tell you how exactly it's gonna come to pass. But it's your responsibility to walk in trust in him that it will come to pass. So it's gave me a faith and a burning desire that regardless of what is going on around me, I have no quit. I have the ultimate belief. I have the ultimate fight that things are going to work out. And we got to have that. But in order to have that, I had to take a step. I had to humble myself and go and ask for help. And God has blessed me to be in a position where now I can tell people, I'm here if you need help. Now, my particular area of expertise is as a financial advisor to provide financial help in helping people plan their financial futures, plan their retirement, plan, passing on wealth to the next generation. That's my gift and my skill set and my talent. But my passion is for the people. But I could not receive that passion, and I didn't have that passion because I went to school and majored in economics and finance, but it wasn't to help you. It was for me to help myself. My goal was to manage my money when I made it to the NFL, not to help nobody else with their money. So God has used every step of my life, and he was ordering those steps even when I wasn't in alignment with him. He aligned and got me on track. But it's through the grace of God and through those prayers of my grandmother, my mother, my father, my family members, and them taking me to church when I didn't want to be at church, me speaking and doing things in the youth department and, being involved and being a leader in church as a youth. Like I literally had people come tell me when I was a youth, after speaking on Youth Sunday saying, man, you're going to be a preacher one day. And I'm like, you know what, man, I don't know. You don't know what I was thinking about just yesterday. Like I'm trying to go play ball. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I'm not trying to be in the pulpit. But now I fully understand what he means because God has called me, but he's called me in my area. Right. And I feel like everybody has been called in an area. It just, we have to seek him to find out what that area is. And until we seek him, those habits, that lack of passion, that lack of direction, that lack of period is going to always be there because we don't have the one thing that can fill us and quench that thirst. See, I ain't thirsty no more. Now, I may get weary in well-doing, but in due time, I know I will reap if I faint not. So I can always sustain myself, and I always have another gear. And it's why I can tell my sons when they don't understand, when I say, you can never work too hard. You're never going to give till you can't give no more, because God is going to always replenish you. Now, they ain't made it to that point in their life where they're ready to receive that message just yet, but it's on the way. And it's my job to lay the foundation, like we're doing right here today, to bring people information, education, expertise, which leads to proper execution. See you next time.